good morning, Knicks Universe, KOD Nation, stand up, and all you DJs, wake up and get your coffee. Welcome to this Wednesday, March 8th edition of the Knicks Morning Brew. I am your guy, Hector, and I'm chilling with the one and only, the fabulous, the most magnificent, Mr. Philly Madison. Good morning, gorgeous.
Good morning, brother. Oh man, what a night, right? Like you got your Brunson cup, and I missed the Brunson last night.
Yes.
That was definitely something that we definitely missed last night. So I definitely need my coffee. I need good conversation. I
Yes.
need hugs. I need a
Yes.
lot
I mean,
after
virtual
last night.
hugs, virtual hugs, virtual hugs,
Bring
virtual
it
hugs.
in. Bring it in.
Yeah,
So yeah.
100%, bro. 100%. Before we get to our guests, shameless plug here, but we will be having soon here on the Etsy store, Best View of Denver, some Knicks tumblers available. You can put coffee in it. You can put water in it. If you like to be like Phil and put whiskey and water in it, you can put whiskey and water in it at the same time. But people,
Who does that? I don't do that.
when you put ice in the whiskey, it turns into water.
No,
So whiskey and
I drink my whiskey neat. There's no ice in my whiskey. We talk
use
about this
fancy,
every
bro.
every
Use
time.
fancy, bro. And
Every
with
time.
people that didn't, we had the watch along party last night. It was pretty dope. It was myself, Jigga, Phil, our guys Eddie and Smitty as well. DSJ joined us in the chat. And Phil, you're a bit fancy, right? You have a fancy house, you have a rooftop, you got whiskey and stuff like that. I just want to let people know that the reason why Phil is so fancy is because he sells feet pictures on the side. I said it last night in the stream. Everybody ignored me, so I'm saying it right now. Phil sells feet pictures on the side to make his money.
You're like that one friend who will like tell a joke and then like if no one laughed, he'll find the next time.
Yeah,
Like in the
definitely. That's definitely
conversation,
me.
as if
That's
we
definitely me.
didn't hear it the first time,
That's
but we
definitely
heard
me.
it. We just were
No,
letting
I
it
said
slide off
I
our
said
back.
it also like the second week of this show, and nobody remembered it, so I try to bring it back again and recycle it. But Nick fans, we are here. Good morning. I see we got Jonathan in the chat. Jonathan, salute, salute, salute. 3 capital S's. We got our guy, Mr. Todd, aka TC Stills, is in the building. What it do?
What
What
up,
it do?
boys?
Philip,
Yeah.
introduce our new guest before we bring him up on stage.
Yeah, so what I love about this channel is that we try to highlight multiple people. It's not just like name fishing, trying to figure out like who's the big Nick fan to highlight, like celebrity status. Like we just love to highlight and talk with fans, and like I said, the other day when we were talking about Benjy, what I love about Benjy is ever since I started following his account, it's like in every single event in this man's life, I feel like he shows up to weddings in this New York Nick jacket that you're about to see. I feel
That's a
like he
fact.
shows up to weddings in there. I feel like he showed up, on his honeymoon to Bermuda in that jacket, like 180-degree weather. This guy's
That's a
in
fact.
that jacket. 10-degree weather, he's in that jacket. Like he is blood in, blood out, a Nick fan. So without further ado, we're gonna bring up Benjy Kleiner. What up, Benjy?
Hold on. And before we bring him up, just 2 seconds, we're going to introduce a new game. And this is something we're going to work on the back end, right? Because you guys know the game, Where's Waldo, right? What we're going to do is we're going to take different scenarios from around New York City, plot Benjy right in the middle of it. And we're going to start the new game. Where is Benjy and that beautiful Knicks jacket? Mr. Benjy, good morning, beautiful.
Hey guys, Hector, Philly, thank you so much for having me. This is technically my podcast debut. I typically call in like Knicks Fan TV and some other shows after the Knicks win. But as I mentioned to you guys, I was really excited to talk about a 10-game winning streak, and I think we all got complacent and a little bit cocky. And here we are the next day, upset about the loss, but also respecting that we've been on a major run. So I'm really happy to join you guys. I love what you guys do. I love that like Ninth Wonder-esque sounding intro beat. So I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Nice.
Yes, gotta give the shout out to Ninth Wonder of the World right there. But Benjy, appreciate you for taking time out this morning. Shout out to you as well, making your podcast debut because you are a voice of one of the Knicks fans in the Knicks universe out there. And as well, I follow you on Instagram, and I've honestly been following you for quite a while. And the stories, the interaction, like I joke about this all the time. I wish I had a father like Phil growing up, and I wish I had a father like you growing up, Benji, because the way that you guys are in your children's life, the way that you actually love the game of basketball, it goes hand to hand with your life and with your passion as well. So salute to you, fellas, for being the best and the most authentic versions of yourself while you're on social media.
I really appreciate that, Hector. Yeah, I mean, it's challenging to keep it up, right? Because I got 2 kids. I try to make it happen and watch all these games, and like you get thrown a wrench. Like the Knicks play at 4 o'clock on Saturday. Like that's terrible timing to have 2 kids and right smack dab in the middle of the day. So those types of scenarios are difficult for me to manage. But either way, this season's been amazing so far, and I just cannot wait to see what the next couple months go. And as far as talking about how Knicks play into my life, I actually met my wife for the first time on February 4th, 2012. It was Knicks, New Jersey Nets. It was actually the first game in Linsanity. And so from that respect, like the Knicks always kind of find their way into my life in some way. And, I just wish we were talking about a 10-game winning streak, guys. I'm still like really upset about it.
As we all are. And like you said, we was a little cocky. It's nice to be humbled once in a while. And sometimes we got to be humbled, especially us Knicks fans, because this is something we've been thriving for, actually being able to root for a team that's been actually playing so good. Yes, last night against Charlotte was a little bit of a heartbreak. We were expecting our team to win. We were up by 16 points at halftime. We felt pretty good. But in the second half, you could just tell that those guys were tired from the double overtime game in Boston. Not making excuses. I'm just looking outside of the box. But Phil, I'm going to throw it over to you and give you a breakdown before we throw it over to Benji.
Yeah. So, last night's game for me was a little bit hard, honestly, because I always want to call it exactly how I see it. I never want to be so loyal to any player or any take of my own, that's how I see it through that lens. I want to always just call the game as I see it. And so when you watch this game, you saw lackluster play from pretty much everybody except for RJ Barrett in that first half. RJ Barrett was effective. He was playing with heart, and then had a fall off in the second half. But if you look at the numbers, everybody was off. Like everybody was off. Like it was hard to watch a lot of that game. And the biggest thing that I have a hard time with is if we're going to be Knicks fans and we're going to stand on the way that we see the game when we're playing somebody else and we win, we have to stand on it the same way when we lose. And so when another team plays us and we beat them, and in the post-game interview, the first thing that they say is that they were exhausted from the game before, or they played in overtime the game before. You're going to see all over Knicks Twitter, Knicks Facebook, everything. Oh, excuses. Everyone's got excuses when they play the Knicks. You lost. You took an L. You can't face the fact that you took an L. And then what happens as soon as we took that loss last night? Everybody's giving them excuses, saying that they were exhausted. And yes, I agree that they were exhausted. But that's where my problem comes. That's where coaching adjustments needed to be made. 9-man rotation has been working great, but we saw that they were not effective at all last night, and that came from their exhaustion. That's where guys who aren't exhausted should have played. I would have rather taken an L last night to the Charlotte Hornets because we played our reserves, our bench players, than take an L because we played our starters who are now exhausted again, going into a freaking California trip that they now have to also deal with the jet lag exhaustion plus their bodily exhaustion and risk even more of that exhaustion and possible injuries and stuff like that. So I went off on my good, bad, and ugly this morning, talking about how I have given Tibbs his praise these last few weeks on the adjustments pre-game that he has done. But if he does not make adjustments during games, that's going to be a huge issue for us down the stretch. 11 for 40 from the three-point line. We're going to lose to a lot of freaking teams if we're shooting 11 for 40 from the three-point line and we're still allowing the three-pointer to fly instead of toning it down and saying, cut it out. You're doing good in the paint. Go back to the paint. this is where coaching comes in for me.
Yeah, 100%. Go ahead, Benji. Let me get your breakdown real quick before I give another deep dive.
Thanks, Hector. Great. I couldn't agree with you more, Philly. I mean, the biggest thing for Thibodeau, and this comes out when we're in the midst of a losing streak like we were before. Let's just say back in December. The lack of real-time adjustments with Thibodeau is just always the major thing, right? Like, he doesn't adjust to how the game is going and make decisions, right? So we know that he determines before the game, okay, 9-man rotation, Deuce McBride's going to play. No one else is going to play no matter what happens. And that's a major flaw. And like you said, it's something that's going to come into play, no doubt, later in the season in the playoffs. Last night you're going to tell me, and I catch a lot of heat for this because I'm probably, the president of the Evan Fournier fan club. I love the guy. I think he's a really class player. And last night he could have played. Like, no reason he couldn't have played last night. Like, it's the Charlotte Hornets. The Knicks were in the driver's seat most of the game. They had a comfortable lead. You could have easily slotted him in for 14 minutes and what would preclude you from doing that? And I think Thibodeau's, sticking to like, hey, 9-man rotation. We're not going to go above and beyond that no matter what. I think there was a recent game where Deuce McBride played like 3 seconds and he was the 10th man in the rotation in that given game. So Thibodeau is just he's so rigid to a fault sometimes when you're on a major streak and the sort of militant way that he coaches and approaches the game, right? He puts so much hard work into his philosophy and all the principles, and the magic is in the work, and all that stuff. You're either gonna win or you're gonna learn. You're either gonna win or you're gonna learn. Comes in play. So I think last night the third quarter was the third quarter of doom. They let guys like Rozier, PJ Washington, Gordon Hayward get cooking, and we missed a lot of open shots. We missed a lot of open shots. Quickly's been playing at a ridiculously high level. You couldn't expect them to be shooting over 50% for that much longer. We were due for a loss. The key thing here, I think, how we rebound is we now need to, now Thursday night's game is now much more important, right? If we had won last night, you could have said, hey, this is the first game of a road trip, tough Sacramento team. We have the ability, we can afford a loss. Now it's sort of like we have to win now. So that's really the major issue that I see, is now it puts a lot of pressure on tomorrow night's game.
Yeah, agree with both takes. For me, before I even give my take, I want to give a quick shout out real quick. Shout out to our guys, still Knicks fans, Ron and John in the building. Ron and John, what it do? Salute, salute, salute. 3 capital X's. We got Uncle Stephen Fox is in the building. Foxy, what are you doing?
Foxy?
My guy Jonathan is in the building. Jonathan said, I don't know why Knicks didn't try to get closer to the basket to get easier shots instead of the 3. Listen, one thing you got to know about the Knicks, Jonathan. The Knicks and mid-range do not belong in the same sentence. That word is out of their vocabulary. I agree with the both of you guys when you come to your takes. My bro Phil, I'm just piggyback a little bit off of what he said, because you pointed out a good point. We should have went to our bench, right? In the first half, the first half was the first half. They were locked in defensively, but you saw in that second half that, yes, RJ had a good game overall, but that second half was bad for him. Same thing with Emmanuel Quickly, and same thing with Julius Randle. It looked like they couldn't even jump off the floor at least half a foot, right? That's how tired they were. Watching the game, or watching the post game, you heard Alan Hahn said that almost every shot, it just clanked off the rim. It was just short. It was just short. It was just short. And that goes to show you that they were tired. And a game against a team like the Charlotte Hornets, it's the perfect game to put your bench players in. We're not saying play your bench players when you're playing the Sacramento Kings. We're not saying play your bench players when you're playing the Boston Celtics, enter whatever team that's competing for a playoff opportunity this season. No, what we're saying is when you have an opportunity to rest your players like we did with Jalen Brunson last night, you should be able to have Obi Toppin in the game for more than what he normally is. You should be able to put Evan Fournier, like Benji said, allow the French man to play. Put him out there, see what happens. Same thing with Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride was good in the first half. He came out scoring defensively and offensively. He hardly played, if he even played in the second half, right? So if you're going to have these guys on the bench, you also have to have them prepare for emergency start situations or prepare for emergency minutes, because you never know who's going to go out. What happens in the playoffs, knock on wood, if one of our big three one of our big three pulls a hamstring or something like that, and has to miss multiple games in a seven game series, are we just going to automatically fold and not lose, or should we have our bench players be prepared to step up when we need them? That's what we need. That's the whole purpose of a bench. So like Phil said, coaching, Tom Thibodeau, this right here, when you're doing good, we're going to give you your flowers on that. But when you're doing bad and you make bonehead decisions like you did last night, we got to point it out. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I understand.
King
Like,
Ribby is in the building. Salute, my guy. If you can, bro, appreciate you for tuning in for the first time. Appreciate you giving us grades on the takes. But if you can, please hit that like button and subscribe. And for everybody who's in the building right now watching, just hit the like button for the boys. Go ahead, Phil.
the whole thing is, like, what is the point of having reserves if when you need reserves, you don't use them? You know, like, I'm not saying blow up your 9-man rotation that's been working. Cool. At first, I did not like the 9-man rotation idea, and I ate my words because it's helped us. I can say I was wrong. But now your 9-man rotation is without a star, like without our main point guard. Our guys are absolutely gassed. This is where you have to pivot. Pivoting is key. Like, pivoting is so important. Like, just like when you're watching a player in the paint, they have a pivot foot for a reason, to be able to adjust to find the best solution for us to score. That's what the coach needs to do. He has to be willing to pivot on his game plan and say, we are going to lose this game, and I'm going to burn out my main guys in doing so. Or if we're going to take an L anyway, let's use the guys who are replaceable on my bench. Let them do what they're going to do. If they surprise us and we get a win, they surprise us. But that's the thing, is there was no coaching. If you look at the 3-point, like I said, 11 for 40. We were 27% from 3-pointers, and yet we kept chucking them up. We were 42.7% in the paint, and yet we stopped shooting in the paint. In a game where you are playing guys like freaking Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington and Mark Williams is their big guy, why are guys like Julius Randle, who are bully ball, if he's going to be in there, not using his size? Why is Mitchell Robinson not gaining rebounds? It was in the pudding. Like, the proof was there. They were too tired to do anything. So why have them do anything? Like, they were going to be mediocre at best with what they had in their tank. Julius Randle continued to say time and time again in the post-game interview, we ran out of gas. We ran out of gas. We ran out of gas. And the good thing is unlike Knicks fans, he wasn't using that as an excuse. He was like, but still, we should have done better. And so, yes, the players could have done better, but I also think the coach does better. How does a car get jacked up? When you're running out of gas or oil, and yet you continue to still try to drive it. Like, yep, I'm on E, and you still try to go. You're going to break down. Our team broke down because we did not pull over and say, let's fill up a different way. Let's do something different.
Fun fact, talking about cars, when I was 19 years old, I took my cousin's 1995 Cadillac Seville to fill up at the gas station, and I poured diesel gas instead of regular gas into the car. So yeah, I was pretty much of a dum-dum when I was younger. But back into the conversation, I want to throw it over to Benjy. My man, Kelly Oubre. Benjy. Kelly Oubre, we understand him as being a player that has tremendous talent. No one ever could knock Kelly Oubre and his talent. But the way that he was talking mess last night, you would think he was a top 5 player in the league. Benjy, let me get your take on Kelly Oubre and his, if you want to say, bad sportsman-like conduct last night during the game. What do you take on that, Benjy?
Well, if he wasn't already on my list of hated players, he's moved up in the rankings. But Kelly Oubre is a talented player. He's not I wouldn't say he's a winning player. I don't have a major. I mean, obviously, when I saw him talking smack to us, that upset me deeply. But I play basketball, and I will talk smack when I hit a shot. So I can't fault him on that. But look, those guys have nothing to play for. So that we played into their hand by letting them hang around. We needed to push the lead to like 25, and that's how the game would have gotten out of control, and we would have locked it up. Oubre is a nice player, man. He's a high volume, inefficient shooter. but he's got great size. Like he's like 6'9". Really solid player. I think at the salary he's making, maybe he's making like 18 or 19 million per. He's a pretty reasonable. He's a pretty solid starter. I wouldn't say he's a winning player. I'd say on a good team, he's a guy that plays 15 to 20 minutes a game. But I strongly dislike him.
Can't agree with can't disagree with that take right there. I'm gonna throw it over to Phil. Before I throw it over to Phil, my guy G Money in the chat just say something awesome. He said, yes, we played the double OT game, but it doesn't matter. The Kings played the double overtime game against the Clippers, and then on the next night they won an OKC without Sabonis. I am not listening to excuses. 100% G Money. Can't disagree with that one right there. Go ahead, Phil. What was your take on Kelly Oubre, brother?
Yeah, so my my view is a little bit different. I personally like Kelly Oubre Jr. And I honestly like his snarky little sarcastic little villain, kind of approach. I think you put it in an orange and blue jersey, a lot of a lot of opinion shift from Knicks fans to think it's pretty hilarious to do it against Boston, or if he was doing that against, like the Lakers or something like that. So I personally like Kelly Oubre. I know there was times where there was possible talks of the Knicks acquiring him and pairing him with RJ, and I liked that idea. I did. I still wouldn't mind having a Kelly Oubre Jr. on the team. However, when you look at caliber of player, Tatum is always going to be in MVP talks. Like, unless something drastically changes, season in, season out, Tatum is going to be in those talks. Kelly Oubre Jr. has never and will never be in those talks unless something like miraculously happens. So the fact that we could shut down and guard Tatum and bring a victory home in double overtime against a team like Tatum and Brown, and yet we can let Kelly Oubre Jr. shoot over 50% from, I think it was almost 60% from field goal and 50% from three. Like, that's a little crazy to me. And once again, yes, they were tired, but it can't be an excuse because there's a solution. Like, if you're playing 3-on-3 basketball and you're on a court and your guys are exhausted, it's 3-on-3. There's nothing you could really do about it. Like, you gotta deal with the cookies as they crumble, but when you're playing 9 guys, and you have 13, 14 on your roster, you can't use exhaustion as an excuse. You have to do something about it. So, like, if you have something, you got to be able to deliver it. Like, there's something still in your kitchen to cook, you cook. I don't look at my family and go, I wanted to cook chicken tonight, but it looks like we're out of chicken. Guess you guys are starving, boys. Like, no, I'm going to open the freaking refrigerator. I'm going to see what else I can whip up because dinner still needs to happen, And so that's the way I saw last night's game is Oubre should not have been cooking the way that he did, but we allowed ourselves to put someone who was healthy, ready, full of energy against guys that could barely run up and down the court. And that's a coaching thing for me.
Yeah, and one thing, Phil, when you're never gonna run out of chicken, bro. It's a Puerto Rican household. No Puerto Rican households to ever run out of chicken, bro, in the fridge. That's one thing from a child. When your mother used to do grocery shopping, bro, she used to pack that thing up at the beginning of the month and the end of the month. That's one thing that we always had when we was younger. But just like 19 Comment says, let him talk his ish now. He'll be going home when we're getting ready for the first round of the playoffs. And absolutely, when it comes to Kelly Oubre, right, you got to understand, this is a guy who he's having a career year this year when it comes to scoring. He's averaging 20 points per game, right on the line, on a team that is fading for Victor Wembanyama. When it comes down to it, we understand we have a different trajectory than the Charlotte Hornets do right now in this moment. They are trying to fade for Victor while we are trying to get ready for the first round of the playoffs and possibly upset some teams in the second or the third round of the playoffs. That's what we're doing, and that's what they're doing. So it was cute to see Kelly Oubre last night. It was cute to see him score, do a little flex action and everything like that. But just like my man 19 Comment said, that man's going to be getting ready for the Bahamas and vacation while we're getting ready for prime time and NBA TV and the playoffs. I'm dropping bombs. sprinkles. Before we go on, I want to drop this little commercial because tomorrow on the Knights of Dejan channel on Tonight We Ride, we got a special guest, and it's a little coming from my heart as a Brooklyn kid myself. We got Zab Judah coming on to kick it with our guy Jigga Man Porto on the channel over at the Knights of Dejan. Let me play this, and we'll be right back. Boom. I can't wait for that. I'm definitely tuning in for that. Make sure you guys tune in for that. If you guys aren't familiar with the Zed horse racing, get yourself familiar because you can sign up to go against Zab himself tomorrow night over on tonight's Re-Ride on the Knights of Dejan channel. But let's jump into the conversation a little bit more because the Randall without Brunson effect, right? Last night, we were able to get away with it in Boston against the Celtics, which honestly was, I don't think any of us had that win lined up before that game. So great to see that from the team. But against a team like the Charlotte Hornets, this is where we needed Jalen Brunson last night. Because in that fourth quarter, when you look at it, when it comes to clutch time points and clutch time scoring, with 6 minutes left to go in the game, the New York Knicks, we got outscored 23-7. I'm going to say that again for you guys. With 6 minutes left to go into the game, we were outscored by the Charlotte Hornets 23-7. When you look at the stark difference between the first half and the second half, they came out fuming in the second half, out rebounding us, out hustling us. And we have been known for, especially in that third quarter, getting that extra tip to help us out. But last night, Charlotte, it was going in their favor. Benji, let me get your take real quick, having the game without Brunson and the effect of not having Brunson on that court. What's your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Brunson, in addition to his stellar play this year, where he's been arguably the best point guard in the Eastern Conference, he's been that steadying force, that leader that when we need to score, he gets into the lane and he can basically get his shot whenever he wants. So he kind of calms things down when things get a little dicey, right? So I felt that pit in my stomach last night when the Knicks started, blowing the lead. Like when you saw the lead was down to 1 and it was a tie of the game, all of a sudden they're down 1. Obi hit a big 3 at a key moment, but that's where Brunson comes into play because he's so shifty, he's so dynamic, he can get to the line kind of at will. He was key, and we didn't really have any answers, especially because RJ went cold. RJ went ice cold in the second half. I think he was 6 for 9 at one point, and so he finished. He shot 4 for 15 the rest of the game, and didn't make any open threes. So. It was problematic. I mean, I think it all starts, honestly. I think Julius should have sat last night. I know this was never going to happen just based on, especially after he came out and said, hey, I invest a lot in my body and I take pride. And if I don't play, I'm letting my teammates down. So I have nothing but respect for Julius, right? We heard on the broadcast last night, since 2021 season, he's played the most minutes in the NBA. Give the guy a night off. I mean, like you said, Philly, we have a ton of other players. We have other players that we can go to. We're not going to play Trevor Keels, but we could go to Derrick Rose. We could go to Evan Fournier. There's other options. And I think last night it was a mistake to try to stretch to prove a point with Randall. But, I don't know. I hope, I think if Brunson needs another night off, give him that rest. But hopefully he's good to go for tomorrow. Because like we said earlier, now that we lost the game last night, tomorrow night's game has, it's increasingly important. That's the issue. You win a big game like we did in double overtime in Boston, and then you squander it by losing a home game to the Hornets that have nothing at the 20-46 Hornets that have nothing to play for. We gave it back. It's like going to the blackjack table and winning a big hand, and then stupidly betting, going to hit on 16 and blowing it.
Yeah.
So hopefully Brunson's back for tomorrow.
Yes, that happens to me a lot. I hit on the slot machine, but I keep on going and never know when to cash out my ticket. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. So the Brunson effect plays multiple parts for me, not just what we see on the scoreboard. Because yes, we could have used his craftiness, we could have used his footwork, his determination, his drive. But let's say he wasn't, like injured, whatever. And he probably could have been just as exhausted as everybody else if he was completely healthy, if not more. But where I see the major effect in first, yes, props to Randall. Okay, I give Randall props for the amount of heart that he puts in, making sure that he's playing, making sure that he's available. We always say the best availability. The best ability is availability, and especially in a league that is full of like load management, where it's like, oh, like I only got 9 hours of sleep last night. I can't really play. I didn't get my normal 11. Like, okay, Kawhi Leonard, calm down. Like you don't see that in Randall. And so that's great. But here's the thing: is we don't have to just sit Randall for the sake of sitting Randall, on that game, but we can look and say, okay, the first quarter has gone by, and you can already see that he's starting to putter. Like he's running out of gas. He acknowledges that he's running out of gas. Everybody watching the game has to see that he's running out of gas. That's where it goes between Randall and the coach. Hey, it's probably best interest if I sit for the rest of the game. I don't have it. Like I'm burning on both sides of the candle right now. Like this is not good. Why risk a body breaking down and going and possibly getting injured and not being effective? Like he's not doing anything to help us win. Matter of fact, like his shots aren't falling at all, and his body is telling him, hey, this isn't good. Why are we going to keep him out there at risk when we already have our other star on the sidelines, injured? Why are we going to risk a possible other injury? So for me, Brunson not being there, Brunson to me is just as much, if not more, a coach to Julius Randle. Like you could see it without him being there, the exhaustion, the disappointment, everything like that was on Julius Randle's shoulders, to the point that he definitely should have gotten teed up, thrown out, everything in those last few minutes, because he would not stop running his mouth to that referee. Like that referee had grace upon grace on Julius Randle last night. And so that's where Jalen Brunson typically comes in and it's like, yo, bro, it's all good. Let's calm it down. Let's reorganize. Let's figure it out. Let's do this. Let's do that. And with Jalen Brunson not on the court, that's where Tibbs, once again, has to step in and be like, I see this. Timeout. Bring it in. Julius Randle, what's going on? Can you shrug it off? Nah, I don't even care. Call a timeout and send him to the corner with Jalen Brunson and let Jalen Brunson, like, coach him if you can't do it. Like, something needed to happen. And so it was unfortunate to watch because Julius Randle has been just having great game after great game after great game. And that should not have been a roadblock for him because of his exhaustion. We should have taken care of our player. We need to look out for our guys and what's the best interest for them, not what fits our pre-written, game plan, but what is best for our guys. Him, Quickly, Grimes, everybody, they just looked rough last night. It was just not pretty.
Yeah. And this is where I somewhat differ, right? Because when it comes to the Hornets, we need to step up and we need to show out against the Hornets. We need to come to play and wake up like we're here to play the Hornets, a team that's where they're at in the standings, and we are where we're at in the standings. But I look at it on the opposite end, because I'm happy that last night game happened against the Hornets, because now for the rest of the season, they're showing up on their next game tomorrow against the Kings with a different attitude. They're not going to be complacent, right? They're not going to go into the game thinking that they're expected to win, especially against the Kings. No, they're going to go into the game with a chip on their shoulder, knowing that, hey, this winning streak still should be on, and we should have never lost that game against the Hornets. Now let's step up and let's go against this game against the Sacramento Kings. Because if last night's performance happened towards the end of the season, last game or last week against the season against either the Wizards or the Pacers, we would be way more upset than we are right now about last night's game and about last night's loss. If this would have happened towards the end of the season, right when we're going into the playoffs, it would have been a little bit different, and tone of Knicks fans probably would have been different. Now that this happened against the Hornets, let's shrug it off, wipe that dirt off your shoulder, and let's continue on our next game, and let's show up and be prepared. Jigga Man Porter, what it do? Good morning.
Right on time. You said dust off your shoulders. I was like, all right, how you doing? Benjy, my guy. What's up, bro?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, dude. Appreciate you being here. I've been backstage typing, hanging out with you guys. You know, they still make me work. It's weird. Like, I actually have to do that stuff during the day.
So, Benjy, we were guys. So, you know, Benjy and I were texting last night, messages. We had to cut our conversation short, all right? Because him and I, we had to save it for this morning because we could have gone forever last night, all right? But I saw JJ in the chat. What up, JJ? He said last night was an ultimate trap letdown game. Not totally shocked. I brought this up last episode, right? And you guys all looked at me crazy. I felt like there was going to be one game, and which game would it be that we were going to have that hiccup game? How bad does it suck that it was the Hornets? Of course. It was the worst time. But you know what? At least we saw a lot of all the mistakes at the same time last night, right? You saw exhaustion. So no excuses. Win or lose, like our boy Johnny Manziel loves to say whenever we're together. Win or lose, we booze. We're Knicks fans. It's still okay. This stretch coming up, though, are we there yet? Have we talked about that? I know I just jumped in. Where we at?
No, not yet. Not yet. I got this look on my face. I got this look on my face. You know why I got this look on my face. You know why I got this look on my face. Because Benjy, last night while we were watching the game, right? We were watching the game, and last night somebody came out and said, "Oh my God, it's gonna be good to go for 10 wins in a row tonight after we win this game." And what did I say? Hush your mouth, because the game's not over. Right, we all know that scene from the Bronx Tale, or we all know that character from the Bronx Tale, Eddie Mush. And last night, Jigga Man Porto was a mush. Throw him in the bathroom, all right? Because last night when he did that, bro, I was so upset, Benjy.
I got abused the whole watch along. Benjy, I need your take on this, bro. Is there anything wrong with me still being super hype and excited last night when we were up 12, or even when we were down, still thinking we were going to come back and win? Is that crazy?
No, not at all. And actually, so people that know me know this. I never I don't have my phone on during the game. I only have my phone on during timeouts and stoppages, halftime, etc. I don't like, it's like a ritualistic thing. So I never like to say anything like is happening during the game until the game's over. Until the game is over, as we know, we don't count our chickens, or however you want to say it. So I had despite all that, I had a friend write me at halftime and talk about the game as if it was won. And then he wrote me this morning and said, "Sorry, no more mid-game text." So
you call yourself a friend?
You touched the money last night. Go ahead, Phil.
What Benji's saying is, yeah, I understand, Jigga, but you're wrong. Is what basically. In a nice, I'm the guest kind of way.
Yeah,
it's like the person that comes in and they're eating the food at the table, even though it's not really good, but you invited them over, and that's what Benjy just did. Like, yeah, Jigga, this is great.
Fine,
but anyway,
whatever.
You don't touch the money.
To Hector's point with the road trip. My only reason that I did not want it to be the Hornet game that we learned this lesson in is because I don't see them being less exhausted now going into these big games than I did yesterday, because they were exhausted from that game. Their bodies were in pain. They still played like 35 minutes each. And now they are going on a flight. And if it's nonstop, it's a 6-hour and 30-minute flight. And then they have to adjust to the 3-hour time difference and play tomorrow night at 10 o'clock p.m. on already exhausted bodies that they're saying we're hurting. So for me, you add that physical exhaustion with that, like, exhaustion of travel and exhaustion of, like, when I travel somewhere to, like, do photography and it's on the West Coast, I go 2 or 3 days before the shoot, because I know that next day after I get there, I'm not going to be 100%. And so that's 6 hours and 30 minutes on a flight with already exhausted bodies. That scares me against a team like the Kings, because the Kings are not going to let a foot off the gas. Like someone said earlier in the chat, they went into a double overtime and then the next day won another game without Sabonis. Like, So if we can't handle that kind of exhaustion, then we should have stopped before we go out to the West Coast to play 3 teams that are better than Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. It's, hopefully this extra 3 hours of rest helps them out. Extra 60 seconds is 3,600 seconds an hour, times that by 3, that's an extra 10,000 seconds that they have to rest. So hopefully this little bit of extra rest helps them out against this team against Sacramento. But just like you said, Phil, no excuses. G Money in the chat, appreciate G Money. But like G Money said, there should be no excuses. Yes, we're trying to make some excuses just to, make us feel better as Knicks fans. But when it comes down to it, that game against Charlotte, we should have won that game. Right, we should have won that game. Now we lost it. Let's brush it off and let's move forward. Right, because everybody is waiting. I shouldn't say everybody. Right, let me take that back. There's a small faction of Knicks fans. Right, there's a small faction of the mainstream news that's out there that is just waiting for the other shoe to fall off of the Knicks so they can say, "Aha! I told you so." Right. So, yes, even though we lost against the Charlotte Hornets tonight, I would say tonight is a must-win game because we can't lose 2 in a row. We definitely can't lose 2 in a row because that would literally flip the momentum back in the opposite way. Even though we won 9 games in a row, a 2-game losing streak can actually hurt us because now automatically our players are going to start thinking deeper into things. They're going to have that monkey on their back. What if you miss this shot? What if you get a turnover right over here? So let them answer that tonight. Tomorrow night against the Kings, and let's just move forward towards the end of the playoffs. Towards the playoffs. But Jigga, I'm gonna throw this over to you so you can handle this conversation, right? When it comes to the team, the what ifs. So go ahead, Jigga, lead it, and then throw it over to Benjy.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I will start right there with Benjy because the reason I came up with the what ifs, guys, was everybody's gonna make excuses for last night. Right. We all know that it started even during the game. Right. I'm just like Benjy. I don't put things out on social and tweet anything till the game is over. But then I like to go back and see what people's thoughts were. Right. So you have the what ifs. But the question for me is everybody can talk about, oh, we were exhausted. We were this and that. Could we really expect anything else, Benjy, when you have a 9-man rotation? Like, I feel the way we play and the way Tibbs has our rotation, that is an excuse that we don't have the privilege of using because can we use that when we've been smashing these teams the last 9 games in a row? We were exhausted, right? So I think it just all came to light yesterday. So what if we had rested everybody last night? What if we had more than a 9-man rotation? What do you think, Benjy?
Yeah, I think it was just. I almost think there's no point in even discussing it because we know Thibodeau is just not going to make the real-time adjustments, and he's not going to dig into his bench. Whether it was Fournier or Rose or Toppin getting extra minutes or sitting Randall in the second half, whatever you had to do, or sitting Randall for the whole game, these are kind of small tweaks that we could have made that I just don't think Thibodeau just doesn't have that in him. And the problem is now we all know, at least for me, I want to get that 5 seed at minimum, right? We want to face the Cavs. That's the matchup everybody wants to see. That's the best matchup for us so we can avoid playing the Sixers. Now, we have the Nets a game behind us. The Nets do have a tough schedule. They have 4 games coming up on the road. They won last night, obviously, in Houston. That's an easy game. They have Milwaukee, Minnesota, Denver, and OKC. So here is where we have to really take advantage. Assuming the Nets go 1-3, if we can somehow go 3-1 on this West Coast trip, I know it's a tall order. That will get some more separation that we need for this 5 seed. We also can't discount Miami. I would imagine Miami's going to get going at some point. We got to solidify this 5 seed, man, because I want that Cavs matchup. I'm not so worried about not having home advantage. I think we just don't have the right coach to even examine the what ifs. He's not going to make the changes that we want. There's been numerous other times where he could have made it. He could have made a tweak here and there. He's just not going to do it. And I go back to Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni, whatever flaws he had as a coach, he was willing to make real-time adjustments. Look at the Jeremy Lin game that I mentioned earlier that I met my wife at. Jeremy Lin,
the best adjustment. Oh, you meant the game. Okay, I thought.
Yeah. In 2012, Jeremy Lin came into the game. I think that was D'Antoni saying they were losing in the game into the Nets and playing sluggishly. All right, Jeremy, come in. D'Antoni's never going to just Thibodeau is never going to just randomly say, "Oh, Evan, come in now." He hasn't. These guys know before the game if they even have a chance to play. You can tell because you can tell Evan has the hoodie on if he knows he's not playing. He's like, okay.
Was it you and me, Benji, last night? Was it us that we were saying this should have been one of those games where we should have saw 48? We should have had other guys rest. Was that you and I? Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, it was obvious that they should have given him time. I mean, Deuce. To be fair, Deuce played one of his best games of the season last night. The game against Philly on February 5th and last night were two of the best games I've seen Deuce play, where he made the biggest impact. So I can't fault him. And I think, look, Thibodeau, when it comes down to the stretch, he's going to go to his guys. He's not going to have Deuce play 2 minutes. It's just the problem that I alluded to before. Now we really have to almost go 3-1 on this West Coast trip. Whereas if we had won the game last night, you could have said, "Hey,
we walk away with that 2-2.
We could split, and that gives us a little more wiggle room." It's all about the wiggle room. We now don't have that because we have the Nets on our case. We have Miami looming. We need to get that 5 seed.
Yeah. Yeah, can't disagree with that one. For me, last night is the perfect example of what separates Tom Thibodeau from from a coach like Greg Popovich. Last night would have been a game that Greg Popovich would have rested Julius Randle, would have put out the bench players. If we called up G League players to fill up the last 2 spots on the roster on the bench, he would have played those players last night. This is what separates our coach from the elite coaches like a Greg Popovich. You know, yes, like you said, Mike D'Antoni is one of those coaches that made adjustments. The Jeremy Lin one, perfect adjustment, probably saved his job for the rest of the season when it comes to D'Antoni. But when it comes to Tom Thibodeau, the same way Tom Thibodeau was able to learn how to switch his rotation to that 9-man rotation last night, he should have went with his gut feeling and rested those players instead of going with his habits, you know, because last night I think he was driven by more than habits instead of gut feeling. You know, there was a report that came out from Knicks Fan TV. Shout out to CP, shout out to our guy Alex, shout out to my guy JD as well from Knicks Fan TV. But there was a report that came out from them that Tom Thibodeau apparently told one of his closest friends when the team was 10-13 that the team was going to fire him. This is literally this is a report that came out yesterday from
TV. It also came out on Yahoo Sports, bro. His words literally were Tibbs believed team was on verge of firing him 3 months ago. I tell you, I love when we segue without even planning it. Benji lined this one up perfectly, right into Hector, right into layup alley. It was beautiful. Phil, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So here's the thing is I think Tibbs is I like I said, I'm gonna give credit where it's due. You know, I do think that from that point when he thought he was going to get fired to now, there has been adjustments that have been incredible for our New York Knicks. So applause to Tibbs. However, my problem still is when Hector's talking about his gut feeling versus his whatever feeling, I don't think there's a differential, to be completely honest. I don't think that Tibbs gets gut feelings. I think Tibbs's gut.
Oh, he definitely gets gut feelings. He definitely has a gut. He definitely get gut feelings.
Just because, he's got a gut. But I'm saying I don't think there's a differential. I think his gut feelings are that what he's going to do is the best way to do it, and that if he sticks to it, it's always going to work out. And that's my problem. Is his gut feeling to me is not one that actually is watching the current game and seeing what's actually happening and actually trying to be flexible with that. Because if you look at the what ifs, let's go with some what ifs. What ifs, because he was the one that was shooting the best in the whole game, was Miles McBride. What if Miles McBride actually played more than 12 minutes and 49 seconds? He was shooting incredible from the field goal. He was 60%, 50% from 3. So what if he played 24 minutes? What if Obi Toppin wasn't taken out immediately when Tibbs thought he made a mistake like he does in normal games because he wants to bring back Randall? Why bring back Randall if Randall's exhausted and not playing well? Like, why not give Obi Toppin the extra opportunity? What if he didn't blame Obi Toppin for not being somewhere that IQ thought he was going to be, instead of holding IQ accountable that he didn't look before he made that pass? Just because Obi was there before doesn't mean that Obi's still there. Like, you have to, so there's a lot of what ifs. What if instead of Hartenstein, who was playing like absolute doo-doo, why didn't we allow Jericho Sims to come in and see if he was going to be any different? What if we actually gave other people the opportunity to do something in a game that like is the time to take risks? Like, so as a photographer, I'm always telling photographers that shoot weddings, try something new at the times where it doesn't really matter. Try something new, test something creative, test something fun when it doesn't really matter. So if we're going to lose against the Hornets with our starters, then it doesn't really matter if we lose to the Hornets with our reserves. So on an engagement session, I have all the time in the world. I will try things that I've had in my little creative mind. I'm not going to try them on a wedding day because there's too much risk on it. But yesterday wasn't a wedding. Yesterday was an engagement session. Yesterday was the opportunity for them to throw things out there and see if it worked. What if Fournier came out and had like a old Boston Celtic type game where he just was hitting everything from three?
But here's the thing, Phil. So, and you know me, I'm never going to fully be on the Tibbs train, but I'm also going to, look at the situation at hand. No, I purposely said no but, right? The thing is, we can harp on last night every which way. We're looking for one person to put the blame on. Yes, he takes a portion of that blame, but he's not the reason why we missed so many open threes. He's not the reason why when we started playing like doo-doo in the third. So yes, the adjustment part, yes. But guys, I mean, I can't sit there outside of him not making adjustments and saying the rest. Up until that third quarter, we were looking great. And then the team, that's where the adjustments need to be made. So yes, I can't put it all on Tibbs, but back to the topic at hand, how could this man have been kind of shocked that he was going to be fired 3 months ago, Benji? Like, was that the first time he ever turned on a computer or just got an iPhone for the first time and saw what the internet was saying?
I mean, look, I remember how I felt on December 3rd after the Knicks lost that game to the Mavericks. I think that put them at 10-13, right? Mm-hmm. That was one of the sickest feelings I've ever had in recent years.
Yeah.
The Knicks were playing well against the Mavericks in a matinee. It was a 12 o'clock game. They were running, and then all of a sudden, Tim Hardaway Jr. started to take over the game. So, and it was disgusting. So I remember how we felt, and then Thibodeau made the quick change to the shorter rotation. We beat the Cavs at home on December 4th, which is my wife's birthday. I remember it. Actually, that's the only that was one of the few games this season that I had to miss. So I know
good reason, by the way. Good reason.
Yeah, good reason. Good reason.
I mean, like I said, I only miss it for weddings, funerals, and other big life events that I have no choice but to miss. But essentially, look, I think Tibbs, this is I want to like the guy, but this is the things that people always go back to is when it doesn't work out, you can point to the rigidity, right? He's the English teacher that refuses to give you an A- no matter what you do. Thibodeau is similar in the respect that he is never going to make these impulsive decisions. It's almost like I almost want to see what happens if he's forced to play somebody that he wasn't planning on playing. What he would do? Would he like all of a sudden say, "Hey, Trevor Keels, come on in"? Like, would he do that? Like, what is he thinking? Because he's so premeditated with how he approaches the game. So it's amazing when it works because you can point to his philosophy and all of his principles and all the things that we like to look at. But when it doesn't work, and a night like last night and like Philly, you're talking all these little adjustments we could have made. Bruce McBride was playing well. Give him an extra 10 minutes. Obi was giving us some energy. Give him some more minutes. I love iHeart. He wasn't good last night. Too many fouls. He couldn't get a rebound. He was falling all over the place. So I think it would have been a good night to try Jericho Sims, see if he could defended Williams a little better. So I don't know. It's a frustrating loss, guys. Yeah. And on the heels of a 6-hour flight, like you said, it doesn't make for a good for a good recipe. But the parallel I want to draw here. So I went to the Clippers game that we lost in the final seconds in an overtime. That was one of the most devastating losses of the year. We quickly followed that up with, I would say, one of the biggest wins of the year, which was against the Sixers. So I think we're kind of in that spot now where tomorrow night's game is pivotal because, like you said, Hector, we have to avoid a 2-game losing streak because then it's gonna come close to undoing all the amazing things that got the national media talking about us. And it's not easy against a high-powered offense. guys, at home, and now we have to pull it all together and just have to hope that Brunson's available.
Yeah,
Have
hopefully.
we gotten any updates on that? On Brunson?
Not yet.
Like, it's
Not
still a
yet.
mystery injury, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yesterday they said it was a game time decision, but they decided to have him rest. So I'm assuming that he'll be available for tomorrow nights. But I don't want to truly assume, because you know what happens when you assume, you make an ass out of me and you.
Oh, you mean like me last night, where I was like, when I heard that they were resting Brunson, no, not the jinx, shut your mouth. But when they said Brunson wasn't going to play, I was like, oh, maybe this is a sign that they are going to rest some of the guys before the road trip. Like, that's really what I told myself. Hey, yeah, I was totally wrong on that one. Go ahead, Hector.
Yeah, definitely.
Jinx.
And I'm a piggyback off of what Phil said last night. I mean, Phil said a little while ago, because when it comes to last night's game, after having our big three, when it comes to Randall, RJ, and then Emmanuel quickly in the moment, because he's in there for Brunson. When those three guys play 40 plus minutes, there's no excuse that you have them the next game playing 35 minutes, right? There should be no excuse that Obi Toppin still last night's game got less than 15 minutes. He only got 13 minutes. There should be no reason Deuce McBride only gets 13 minutes. Josh Hart, he got 33 minutes. I like to see that. If we would have gave Josh Hart more minutes, I'm on board with that. But like Phil said, if Isaiah Hartenstein, who looks like he's nursing a foot injury, a lot of reports saying that he's nursing a foot injury. If Hartenstein is nursing a foot injury, then put Jericho Sims in there. Put Jericho Sims in there. If you have to go to Isaiah Hartenstein because Jericho Sims got in quick foul trouble, the limited minutes that he was out there, then go to Hartenstein. But just don't let Hartenstein be the first answer off the bench for Mitchell Robinson if he's nursing a foot injury, right? There should be no reason why he's out there, especially for 15 minutes if he's nursing an injury. We need Isaiah Hartenstein to get ready for the playoffs, because in this 9-game winning streak that just passed, one of the best things that came out of it was seeing how versatile Isaiah Hartenstein can finally be. We were sold a bag of goods in the offseason when the team acquired him, and we were actually seeing it paying off during that 9-game winning streak. He was playing really good basketball. Then that foot issue came up. The last 2 games of that winning streak wasn't the best, and now last night's game. So if he is having an injury, if he is nursing an injury, put Jericho Sims out there. If you got to go to Isaiah Hartenstein, then go to him if Jericho Sims gets in foul trouble. Just Tom Thibodeau, trust the guys that you have on your bench. Trust your veterans. Like Benjy said, last night would have been a perfect game for the French assassin to come off the bench and give you a nice 20 points, right? Last night would have been the perfect game for Derrick Rose to come up in there and actually do damage against Dennis Smith Jr. off of the bench, right? There should be no reason why Derrick Rose doesn't play against Dennis Smith Jr., who's not a real good defender. So last night would have been a perfect opportunity for D Rose, but I digress.
Yeah, and to just harp on what you guys are talking about before we move to the next topic, I was kind of thinking about, the whole Tibbs thing, and like, I think people have to realize that just because we see something that still needs change doesn't mean that we are not appreciative of the things that we have seen. Like, we're giving praise, but praise doesn't mean that it comes with blind eyes to what's still in front of us. So for me, I know we say the best ability is availability, but to me, I don't believe that. Like, I don't. I think the best ability is adaptability. Like, being able to adapt to what is happening around you, being able to make changes that need to happen. Because if you're available, but you're not effective and you're still being utilized, that doesn't make any sense. It's great that you're available, but availability does not mean effective. Availability does not mean that you are going to help us get to where we need to go in that moment. So adaptability would have been like, hey, we're thankful you're here, but these guys also have availability. So I need to look at what availability is going to be the best for this game. Just because you make a change this game doesn't mean that everyone expects Evan Fournier to start next week. Everyone knows that Fournier is going back into hoodie mode that next game. One does not cancel out the other. So that's my little rant. I'm done.
Yeah, you see, but here's the thing, and Benji, I'll toss it to you too, is after this loss, we're not saying anything that we haven't been saying all season, right? What happens with a 9-game winning streak, we're able to take that feeling and just push it down, right? And hide it for a little bit. and we keep doing it, right? It's like dropping them tums to get rid of that heartburn. You're like, oh, I got this, but you know that shit gonna come back here in a little while. That's what this is.
Language.
We've been pushing it down over the last 9. Stupid. You know, I can't even with you. The jinx, the swear jar. Like I'm covering everything with this crew, okay? But I just
want to say real quick before we throw it over to Benji. 1 p.m. in the next hour, you guys can catch me on NYY News TV, Game Season Live with my guy Pete Simonetti. I will be calling the Yankees versus the St. Louis Cardinals. I know it's spring training, but we're getting ready for the Yankees season that's literally right around the corner. So you can catch me on NYY News TV with my guy Pete Simonetti calling that Yankee game. Go ahead, throw it over to Benji.
What I want to talk about, Benji, is let's move on from last night. All right. We've harped on it. Everybody's doing it. I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of Twitter space about to kick off that will be touching on it as well. This road trip, we know what we need, but realistically, Benji, what are your thoughts on it? How are you feeling? How do you see us coming out of this? And have you lost hopes on us being in that 5 or 4 seed? Where do you see us landing, bro?
So obviously, and this is obvious, but with any of these West Coast trips in particular, getting that first win is always like the biggest thing to set off to kind of give you that cushion. Because we know West Coast trips, there's a lot of factors at play, like the long travel, things beyond the actual game, right? Like just the fact that it's difficult to be, the players are tired. We don't account for any of that. We don't think about any of that, but that's the reality. So I think getting tomorrow, I think after tomorrow, we'll have a better idea of what this trip could be. I think the back-to-back LA games will be challenging. So I almost want to try to get a split in those and be happy with that. And then the Portland game, not going to be easy, right? Our old buddy Cam Reddish, but you know, I think that still will be a tough game. So I think it's going to be difficult to be 3-1. I'm feeling good that we can get 2-2. But there's going to be a swing game. So whether it's going to be tomorrow night, hard to say. I mean, we absolutely obliterated the Kings earlier this year in December. I went to that game.
Right.
So that was probably one of the worst games the Kings played all season. But them at home with their crowd is pretty live. That building's got some energy to it. So I'm a little bit worried about that game. And then the problem with beyond the road trip, we come home after the road trip, and you know who we play? Denver. So,
Nuggets are here. Yep.
So I mean, we're looking at a 5-game stretch here of difficult games. There's no gimme games. Moving past last night, but
it's hard to.
You got to stack these wins. You got to stack these wins. Last night should have been win number 40. So you do whatever you can to stack that win, and if it means deviating from your philosophy and your principles that you just refuse to deviate from, you do it. So, I mean, I'm feeling good overall because this team has shown a tremendous resiliency. Like even losing that Clippers game, they bounced right back and beat the Sixers. That was a huge win. You know, we've seen them within games, like the Boston game, they blew the game. The two Boston games in Boston were both games that the Knicks blew a big lead and came back and won and got the win. So they've shown that resiliency. So I feel great about the DNA of the team. I just there's a couple factors, like, is Brunson going to play? I think we might need him. De'Aaron Fox is really dynamic and having an amazing year. And Malik Monk out of nowhere has become like a big 6 man of the year favorite. So I think, like I said, 3-1 would be amazing, and it would nullify last night's loss. 2-2 would be okay. But what we do have in our favor, and I'll kick it over to you guys, is who's behind us. So the Nets have a really tough schedule coming up, and Miami plays Cleveland back-to-back games. So even though we're chasing Cleveland and we want them to lose, thank you so much, Grant Williams, for not being able to make a single free throw. Appreciate that. But essentially, Miami playing Cleveland, we're going to get a positive outcome in the sense that Miami loses. We're still happy because we have more separation with them. So I think it's a pivotal 5-game stretch. If we can go 3-2 in this stretch and have the other teams on our tail, like the Nets and Miami and even Atlanta, who's farther behind us, kind of keep them at bay, then we'll have 10 games left, and then we'll have a better idea where we're going to go. But I'm definitely nervous. Denver at home is a game I'm very nervous about. Last year, we got absolutely blown out by Denver. at home, and it was one of our worst efforts. So I'm worried about that matchup. And
I agree with you, Benji. I think that the Kings game is going to set the tone, right? And again, like you said, we all said moving past last night. That to me is the biggest hurt from losing last night, right? Is we thought the hardest game going into the stretch would start off with that Kings game, right? And it's like, all right, then we were in that position to, hey, we could, if we needed to lose. We didn't think, we're still on that train. And I think, Hector will give us his big rant. Hopefully soon. He hasn't lost that EFC energy.
What? No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's the thing, right? It makes this road trip harder. I think tomorrow's an epic game. But what I laughed about last night when I was talking to my son, we were talking about the Knicks game, and he said, I guess you guys really are a good team. So what do you mean? I guess you really are. He goes, because it's good teams that are really good that end up losing the game like you did to Charlotte Hornets. He's like, you guys are a good team that can beat the Celtics, and now you lose to crappy teams. He's like, you've earned your flowers. So I didn't know that was a thing, but just so you guys know, losing to crappy teams makes you a better team.
That, and that's why your son has become my favorite Porto. I swear to God, that out of you and Phil, your son has won me over. He's a Pokemon fan, so me and your son, we like this now. We BFFs.
Go ahead, Phil. Kings game.
Yeah. So honestly, this was one of the ones that I was a little unsure about. Because I still believe in our team. I think we have, a great team. But in games like tomorrow, we're really going to need to come together. We're really going to need Jalen Brunson, and we're going to need to be a little more flexible when it comes to decisions in the game. Because if you look, like the main stat we need to look at is our assists right now versus a team like Sacramento's assists, because they are not the kind of team that just, if it, they're going to shoot it, they're going to shoot it. They are looking for the best shot. Like in their last game, they had 39 assists, as opposed to our last game, we have 18 assists. Like that is incredible margins, like incredibly different. And like if you look at their shooting percentages have been a lot better, like way better than ours. And so we just have to be very careful for that, because we're still chucking up threes when we're shooting 27.5%, and yet they are being selective with their threes while they're shooting 42% from three. So they had a great game, their last game against the Pelicans, and they looked impressive. All of their players were on the scoreboard with good numbers because of how they work together. Like De'Aaron Fox could easily just run the show, but he doesn't. Like he runs the show when it's time to run the show. Sabonis does the same. They get Herder involved when Herder needs to be involved, and he gets great three-pointer shots. So they're the kind of team that we need to come in firing on all cylinders if we're going to compete, because right now they are trying to keep, just like we're trying to get where we want to go in the standings, so are they. Like they want to stay in that second spot. Like no one's going to get the first spot. Like Denver's already locked that down in the West. Okay. But the second,
because they're what, tied, right, with the Grizzlies on their end? Is that,
yeah, they're tied with the Grizzlies. So they want to be in that second seed. They want to be in the second seed. And so they're going to fight for that spot. And they're going to see every single team as an opportunity for them to stay in that spot. And that's what we need to do, is we need to see every single team, whether it's the Hornets, whether it's the Nets, whether it's the Lakers. We need to see every single team as a must-win victory. Why? Because it's that kind of thing. Because the Nets behind us, they're going to see everything that way as well. So we need to see it that way. We can't get complacent. We have to make whatever changes need to be made in order to walk away with that victory. So I hope we pull it off tomorrow. I hope that if we are seeing some of the stuff we saw yesterday, that we take yesterday as a lesson learned and we don't ignore it, and we actually make changes that have to be made. But I still believe in this team. I really do. Like the 9-game winning streak wasn't what made me believe in it. It was the chemistry that I saw starting to form within those.
Facts.
Like even if we lost yesterday, but I saw the energy and the chemistry and everything like that there, I wouldn't have cared that we lost.
Yo, how funny is it that we lost, Phil, and I'm wearing a New York Jets jersey next morning? It's like I didn't even realize. I was hoping that I woke up this morning because we were having an Aaron Rodgers celebration, but whatever. Moving on to that.
No changes. No changes being made, Philly. I'm sorry. We're running it back the same exact thing you saw. The question is whether or not we hit enough shots to win the game.
Yeah. That's it. For me, when it comes down to it, when we go on this road trip right now, again, we start off against the Kings. Like I said earlier, gotta win this. Can't go 2 in a row because it will undone all the good things that we have done in this winning streak. In New York City, especially when it comes to us Knicks fans, our moods change just like the weather changes. It literally can shift just like that. But I have faith in this team coming down the stretch. This is going to be the litmus test for the Knicks going forward, going down this stretch run. I think it's like 15, 16 games left in the season. So this is going to be the stretch run. This is going to be the make or break if this team is actually real or if this team is actually a fraud, right? So make or break test time. Hopefully we close out the rest of the season on a positive note, go into the playoffs with good motivation and with a good head on our shoulder, because like I said, if this loss against the Hornets last night would have happened in the last week of the season, a lot of fans would have been upset. We wouldn't have as much games left to actually fix our mistakes and fix what is wrong with our team when it comes to the third quarter. So now let's use these last 15 to 16 games to figure out if we're going to go with a 9-man rotation or if we're going to just throw one person in there to make it an even 10-man rotation. I don't think so. I think Tibbs is still going to be stubborn and set in his old ways and still go with a 9-man rotation. But I would love to see just an extra person out there just to give, instead of 35, 38 minutes to the starters, you could give them 33 to 34 minutes. That's all we're asking for going down the stretch run, honestly. So Tom Thibodeau, if you're watching right now, Tom Thibodeau, it's never too late for an old dog to learn new tricks. We saw it with you this season. You got a nice beard. All right. The beard is looking good on you. It's the first time in 50 years that you've grown out your beard. So Tom Thibodeau, we love you. Yeah, we love cut it and tape it. We love you. Just keep it together going down this stretch run. Don't fold under the pressure, Tibbs.
So, guys, before we wrap up the show, appreciate everybody in the chat too. Man, the Brew Crew, you guys always just go nuts in that chat. I actually dropped a little question there for you guys too. Do the Knicks beat the Kings? I want your guys' take on it. But while we got Benjy, I'm working on a new segment coming out soon. We'll get into it further. So I'm gonna start it with Benjy. All right, it's gonna be called Fansplaining, and I mean, Benjy, you're a fan, and you definitely can explain a lot when it comes to the Knicks. But I want to ask you, man, as a Knicks fan and your fandom, who was or is your favorite Knick of all time? Like who's got the Benjy stamp?
Allen Houston, unequivocally my favorite Knick of all time. Actually, when Allen Houston in his, I think his first or second year as a Knick, I used to take the newspaper clippings, physical ones, and put them up on my wall. Nice. I love the guy, and one of the most beautiful jump shots you've ever seen. I have 3 of his jerseys. I met him in person. Super nice guy. I just loved his game. I thought that he now as we're taking a step back from what we've been through the last 20 plus years in particular, I think he was underappreciated because he brought a level of professionalism in an era of 3-pointers. He had just an absolutely beautiful jump shot. He was a great 3-point shooter, but I imagine him now, if he took like 9 threes a game, what it would look like, right? Because he shot 40% for his career three. So he probably would have had higher scoring numbers. But I love Allen Houston. And the funny thing is that there was like a whole but there was a group of fans that loved Sprewell, and then there was a group of fans that loved Allen Houston, and like they butted heads because Allen Houston and Sprewell used to kind of operate separately. Like they didn't really like interplay. Like Houston would post up and Sprewell would post up, and they would get the ball. So they kind of operated sort of in the same way that RJ operates on his own kind of thing. Like he gets the ball independent of Brunson and Randall. So Allen Houston, unequivocally my favorite player. I'm happy that he's still in the organization, and
Yeah, it's funny because Phil and I have talked about it on the show before. You know, it was always Starks in Houston, right? And we would always have to argue on who was going to be who when we'd play, right? Whether it was on Nintendo or we were out hanging out, you know, at what was the Catholic school we used to always play at in Riverdale, Phil?
St. Margaret's.
St. Margaret's, and we'd all go over there, and he'd be like, "No, I'm Starks. You're Houston." I'm like, "No, you're Houston." So great call on that, Benji. I see people dropping their answers. Hernandez went with Marbury.
Can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with that.
Sunil dropping that Larry Johnson and Latrell Sprewell. Woo.
As long as Sprewell's not choking anybody out. That's a fact. That's a fact. For me, it's weird for me. And I'll throw it over to Phil right afterwards. For me, when I first started watching the Knicks, Marbury was on the team, but I gravitated to Kurt Thomas. I thought Kurt Thomas was a leader. I loved Kurt Thomas back in 2003, 2004, when the power forwards really weren't known for having that mid-range game. Kurt Thomas, that's one thing he had. He was the pop and pick guy from on top of the key, or pop and pick from the foul line. And it's a guy that, even though he was a power forward, he was asked to play center for so many years for the Knicks, for the Suns, for the Bulls, and he showed up, and he was a professional basketball player. He was a blue-collar kind of guy. If you were growing up in New York City, or if you were a worker in New York City that had to take the train every morning to school or to work, that was a guy who you could relate to, was Kurt Thomas. Kurt Thomas, he probably took the train to Madison Square Garden as well with us, right? So Kurt Thomas was my guy growing up when I was in high school. What about you, Phil?
Go ahead, Benji.
My tidbit on Kurt Thomas. It's so interesting and almost fascinating. His like money shot was like a 9-footer along the baseline. Like, who even shoots the ball from that area anymore? Nobody. They shoot a floater at most. Like, you know, Oubre hit a floater from the baseline, but that was Kurt Thomas's spot. So random. Like, nobody shoots. It's almost like it doesn't even exist on the floor, because it's all like, you know,
David Lee and both Chan and Fry, they both said that they credit their mid-range game to that 2005 season when Kurt Thomas was on the team with the Knicks, and they were rookies.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Philly. I need to know.
Yeah, you know, it's hard because, like, when I look at my 90s Knicks, I'm just like, holy crap. This is like going into the candy store before a movie, and like all my favorite snacks are on the same shelf. Like, which one do I freaking buy? I'm a fat kid. You like, deal with it. But so
I
for
like
me,
cake.
if I always have to choose one, it's going to be John Starks. Like, time in and time out. Like, for me, not only was he a player that showed a lot of heart, like, through in everything that he like did, but the fact that it was an underdog story, like the fact that, like, it's not just like, oh, he was drafted second in a second round, underdog story. Okay. But this guy was bagging freaking groceries, and next thing you know, he's slamming on Jordan and Horace Grant. You know, like, this guy was.
Oh, you mean something like this? Wait, is it playing?
Nope, not yet.
Oh, they had to drop that, Phil. That three on them.
Yeah.
It's to the point that I had to write a whole song about him, because like that, you know, that guy just was the epitome of me on how I kind of want to do everything that I put my hands to. You know, I want to make sure that I'm putting 100% in everything I do, whether it's parenting, whether it's even when I go and, you know, play on the court now. You know, like, my legs can't really do what I'm forcing them to do, but I refuse to not give 100%. So I'll pay for it for the next 14 days. But that's the kind of like persona that I've seen that I don't see in a lot of players now, is the full on giving 100%. And then, side note, I don't think we've ever seen a player like Anthony Mason since Anthony Mason. So that's a side kudos of like credit, because the way that guy was able to play bully ball, but still have like handles of an and one player, like an and one mixtape player, like that dude played with a ferocity that you do not see in anybody since him. So yeah, but Starks for sure.
I want to add something, right? Because TC Stills, he just said nobody like Patrick Ewing. I want to ask the three of you fellas, because the three of you fellas are just a little bit older than myself, and we're watching the Knicks before I started watching the Knicks. But I want to ask you guys, there was a faction of Knicks fans, right, that had something against Patrick Ewing, right? Was it warranted the same way? Because there was a faction of Yankee fans that had almost the same disdain for Mickey Mantle, because Mickey Mantle was supposed to be the next guy, the next great Yankee, never fully reached his potential when it comes to 600 home runs as a switch hitter. We all know, when it comes to alcoholism, what Mickey Mantle went through. But I feel that, there was a faction of Knicks fans, just like there was a faction of Yankee fans that had disdain for both those players, because those players, even though they were great, they never lived up to the hype of coming to New York City, whether it be the Knicks or coming to the Yankees with Mickey Mantle. What's your thoughts on that, Benji? I'll throw it over to you first.
Yeah, I'm 41, so born in 81, and I grew up obviously with Ewing, but yeah, I'm old. But
I'm right there with you, Benji.
No,
they
well
call us the old guys, bro.
Well seasoned,
right?
not
41.
Well
How you doing, Benji? We look good at 41, bro. They can shut up, all right?
We're doing the best we can, but I think part of it was that obviously Ewing didn't win, and he didn't. We got to the finals, he couldn't get it done, and then obviously, yeah, people will point back to the missed finger roll against the Pacers. That was really bad. Looking back on that play, it's kind of crazy. It was actually a harder shot than most people would give it credit for, but. And then I think also part what plays into it is the fact that Ewing, he wasn't, it's different in his post-playing career, but he wasn't the most likable guy. He was a little bit short with the media. So he that didn't make, you know what I mean? Like, look at Brunson. Brunson has such a great personality. Like, he's just like a friendly guy. Same thing with Josh Hart. I think people just naturally gravitate to those types of players. Obviously, IQ, Mitchell Robinson, those type of personalities. Back in the, many years ago, without all social media and all that those other outlets, Ewing just didn't come off as the most gregarious guy, so that didn't help him out. And then obviously his supporting cast were not there until it was much later in his career. So he had Allen Houston and Sprewell and some other pieces, but he was limping up the court at that point. So he wasn't. If he had those players in his prime, things could have been different. But I think he's underappreciated, and everyone kind of sees that now.
Yeah, agree.
It took a while for everybody to see it. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, so for me, I think there's a huge difference in the question of who is your favorite New York Knicks player and who is your best, the best New York Knicks player. For me, Starks is a favorite. But to me, if I have to choose who I think is the epitome of a New York Knicks player, I'm going to say Patrick Ewing. Because like you said, at a time where we didn't really have supporting casts, Patrick Ewing was that guy. Patrick Ewing was that staple. And now people can understand because at the time, it was still young, actually having superstars that you looked at as not just entertainers on a basketball court, but you wanted them to be entertainers just in general. Now there's the USA Dream Team, stuff like that. New expectations. You have guys like Jordan in the same time who Jordan absolutely loves the spotlight, and so you're going to have these extremely charismatic players, and that's what people are going to draw to. It wasn't really understood that you could be in entertainment such as the sporting realm and kind of be an introvert. Now that's okay. Now it's understood that guys like Kawhi Leonard don't really talk much and it's not frowned upon. It was then. It was a misinterpretation of what a celebrity in the NBA should look like. But if you look at players had the utmost respect for him. Because they were the ones that were actually talking to him on and off the court. They were the one traveling and doing the Olympics with him. So he may have not been the great cameraman, but he was still a great, great player and a great person to be around for those that were around him. So for me, I would say he is my favorite. He's not my favorite, but he is one of the best New York Knicks, and he would be top 5 favorites for me.
Nice.
Copy.
All right, so guys, I've got one more for Benji before we get close to wrapping it up here, so we can go vent on our own. Benji, I would be doing myself a disservice if we didn't bring up Uncut Gems, bro. Can we talk about that? What was that experience? I mean, I don't know if you also were in a movie that has one of my absolute favorite guys. How you doing? I'm in love with the man, with Adam Sandler. Talk to me, bro. How was that whole experience? How'd that come together?
Yeah, it was amazing. Obviously to be a part of a special film that is still talked about, came out in 2019. It was, it still kind of has a lot of life to it because it's kind of a cult movie and obviously very well reviewed. Special movie. Yeah, I mean, I know the directors, so got cast for it. Obviously, I'm not an actor, but everything kind of worked out. It was one of those random kind of humorous things that happened that I got called to be in it. I mean, it was super amazing. I was obviously very like apprehensive going into it because I had no experience doing it, and there's so much that goes into like being an actor and even doing things like walking straight, walking through a revolving door, which is what I did in one of the scenes. Like even that is like challenging to make it look like natural. So, I mean, I think, it was a definitely like one once in a lifetime. Hopefully there's another opportunity down the line, but who knows? To be, with Adam Sandler and Judd Hirsch and Eric Bogosian and all these big time actors that have had 30 years of, being in a ton of movies, to be in a room with them and sort of at one point I looked around and I was like, what am I, what's going on here? It makes no sense. It was amazing. And to, the movie was on the other night. I was watching it. So incredible. I mean, it was super special and obviously something that nobody can take away from me. So hopefully there's another chance, but it's funny because of the connections to KG, right? KG is as Knicks fans is not somebody that is well liked, but it's funny to be in a movie with him and sort of have that connection. But and then the basketball piece obviously is great. But the one little tidbit about the movie that's kind of funny is that in the movie, I actually say, my character says, it's hard to pick up, but my character says, I met my wife during the first game of Insanity, which is actually true.
True.
That somehow ended up in the movie because, as you know, the movie was very like ad-libbed and sort of like a lot of stuff, background noise and stuff like that. So that is a true story. I got the Uncut Gems ball up top there, but it doesn't. So incredible experience.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's
and
amazing.
It's funny because I watched it with my older kids have seen it, right? My wife got anxiety and throughout that entire movie, and she's like, "Oh my God, why did you make me watch it? I feel like I need a break." And I was like, "I love it." But it's funny too because telling my kids, "Oh yeah, I'm about to do the show," they're like, "Oh, who do you have on?" And then I'm like, "Oh, Benjy," and then I point to. It's crazy now that it's like, "Oh wait, I know." Oh, okay, yeah, So super cool. Feel free to let Adam Sandler know that he can call me anytime. All right. Benjy, man, really appreciate you, man. When it comes to your fandom, there's no question whether it's you opening up when you're calling in on Knicks Fan TV or anything that you do, bro. The fandom is real. Knicks community is better because you're a part of it. And seriously, I mean, we locked you up for an hour and a half, man. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm incredibly appreciative of you guys, Hector, Philly, Jigga. This at least helped me feel a little bit better. I now like subconsciously feel better about the game last night. I'm past it, whereas I might have compartmentalized it otherwise. So yeah, let's see. Ask me how I'm doing at 1:07 a.m. tomorrow night.
All right, we'll
let's see.
Awesome. Well, Benjy, man, thanks again. Appreciate you.
Appreciate
you. On that note, guys, we're gonna do the quick wrap out. Philly Madison is out. Knicks Morning Brew Hector is out. I'm your boy Jigga Man. We're out. Let's go Knicks. And guys, you already know the drill. Subscribe, like, follow. 1 o'clock. You only got 30 minutes. Go check out Hector doing the watch along on MOY News TV. And did you have something? Because I saw you pointing your finger.
No, that's all I wanted to say. And I don't want to say I love you, beautiful gentlemen on this panel.
Peace.
Get this win tomorrow, guys.
Yeah,
yes, sir. Peace.